So guys, Leon Edwards was briefly taken off the rankings. Now he's put back on the UFC rankings, and he's fighting Khamzat Chimaev. We're talking about that fight right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So Nick, our hottest fighter of the summer.
Yeah.
And now even moving into the fall, we got Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah.
It was kind of a game of shuffleboard a little bit as far as who he's going to fight next. He came in super hot. Fight Island first edition, fought back-to-back, finished both fights in spectacular fashion, just knocked out Gerald Mearschart a couple of weeks back, and he told Dana, listen, I want to roll. I want to keep fighting. I want to keep going, and I want to keep getting closer to that title shot. And then on the other hand, you had Leon Edwards, who last fought in San Antonio. Actually, I was there at that fight, and that was last summer, almost a year and a half ago, and looked spectacular against Rafael dos Anjos. And we thought maybe he's on a fast track for getting a title shot. They couldn't seem to get it right with Edwards.
Yeah.
A few fights got turned down. There was some disputes here and there with the UFC, so much so that a couple of days ago they removed him from the UFC rankings at the number 3 spot. And now he's back on the UFC rankings in the same number 3 spot, and he's fighting Khamzat. So, and it's in December 19th. I know Khamzat would have liked to fight sooner than that. However, it does seem like if he beats the number 3 guy in the world, that skips a few steps along the way, right?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to see him get in there, and he kind of wanted to stay active, winning 3 fights in less than 70 days. And the whole have him booked for 2 fights at any given time in 2 different weight classes, that was like a cool gimmick that the UFC was kind of doing and experimenting with, and I think it was really working, and I think it was just a good selling point on Khamzat. It just kind of shows how different he is, and it's kind of how dominant he could possibly be. He could be making a run at 2 divisions. Which one is he going to, take a little bit of time out of and then focus on for a title shot? Is he going to do that, or is he going to try to, simultaneously climb up the ranks of both? It looks like the UFC kind of wants him to make that initial run at 170 before he goes up to 185 and make a run. But yeah, I do think this is a big jump up, for him, not only in competition, but in the rankings, which, the rankings mean something. They don't mean everything in this sport. But Leon Edwards is kind of undeniable. If there weren't a couple of people in front of him during this log jam, he'd, deserve a title shot. But, it's kind of difficult to give him one after he's taken so much time off versus a guy who's been more than active, who's been just running the game, as 2020 has been Khamzat Chimaev's year for sure. And like you said, I'm sure he hates the fact that he's been off so long. But I do think that December will be here before he knows it, and he's got a real fight on his hands with Leon Edwards.
Yeah, and I got to be honest, I was getting a little frustrated with Leon Edwards because I did hear from reliable sources that he turned down a fight with Colby Covington.
Yeah.
And then he was offered Kamaru Usman, but it wasn't with the amount of notice that he wanted, and he turned that down. And he just didn't seem to want to play ball and negotiate with the UFC and make something happen. So my frustration level with him went up a little bit. However, stepping in and saying, listen, put all that in the past, I'm ready to fight Chimaev right now, that kind of redeems him in a way because he's fighting an unranked guy.
Yeah.
A guy that there's not a lot of tape except for just domination, very quick domination of most opponents, all finishes. There's nobody has really gone out there and won rounds against Chimaev, gone out there and done some things that make other people say, okay, I think he might be weak here, I might be weak there. So this could be very much a lose-lose for Leon. Yeah. If he beats Chimaev, well, of course you're supposed to. Right. You're the number 3 fighter in the world. The guy's a brand new fighter, doesn't even have double-digit wins yet.
He's only got 1 fight at 170.
Exactly, but if you lose, I mean, you just lost to an unranked fighter. You just fall all the way
out of the rankings.
Yeah, and so, but then, so kudos to Edwards, a fighter who I admittedly was getting frustrated with for taking this fight. I saw Leon Edwards fight, as I said, in San Antonio, and he looked as crisp and sharp as anybody I've seen live. I mean, he fought Rafael dos Anjos, dominated the fight. We're talking about a former world champion, guys that's beaten Anthony Pettis, was the 155 king for a while, and he made him look far inferior to him. So Leon Edwards has a really high level skill set. Chimaev, I thought, was going to have to do probably 2 or 3 more fights and win them in glorious fashion before they talk about him getting a title. Now I'm not so sure. Now if he goes in there and he dominates the number 3 guy in the world who's taken out former champions, is Chimaev next in line? Is he one fight away from a 170 title shot?
Yeah, well, it's hard to believe that he's not. He's obviously one of the hottest names in the sport right now, and if he moves into the top 5, top 3 of a stacked division, then he's absolutely one win away from a title shot, no matter who's got the belt. And I think that if he is able to get past Leon Edwards and he becomes the number 3, that's kind of how it works. If Leon's 3, he beats Leon, he kind of gets the number 3.
Right.
He could bounce back from 185, but the win at 170 and becoming number 3 at 170 moves him into top 5 opponents at 185 as well. So he's not only is he jumping in the 170 division 10 people.
Exactly.
He's jumping 10 people at the 185 division as well.
Even if that number's not next to his name, they're not putting the number 3 guy, potentially, if he beats Leon, at 170 at the back of the pack at 185.
Right, yeah. And he's exciting. I think that they do kind of see him being a title contender very soon. This seems like it's biting off a lot more than, he had bargained for, but he does seem like he's up for the task. He seems like he's ready for these types of challenges. And when nobody wants to fight you, you kind of got to go with whoever just says yes. And I do believe that it was a little bit of negotiating, and it was hardball with the UFC. And Leon Edwards definitely he got the short end of the stick on this one because they take him out of the rankings. That was a power move on their part. And so he probably felt like his feet were put to the fire. I need to just accept a fight so I can get my ranking back. And they go, yeah, well, we got a guy. Heard of him? His name's Khamzat Chimaev. Yeah. And he's like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, I was one fight away from getting a title fight. And probably if I just wait a little bit longer, I might get one. And now you want to give me this guy who, I don't want to say he's unknown because he's not unknown anymore. He's made headlines week after week after week this year. But a guy that's unranked that I don't get much out of beating him, but he gets a ton out of beating me. So I think Leon is showing that he believes in himself. I think that it's a great fight. I think we're going to see a lot of questions get answered for both fighters.
Yeah.
And if Khamzat gets out there and does what he does against Leon Edwards, he gets the next title shot.
You have to. I mean, as I said, Leon has beaten former belt holders before. Right. He's beaten Hall of Famers. He's good everywhere. He's athletic. He's explosive. He has great punching and boxing IQ.
Yeah.
Very, very solid striker. Good takedown defense. Good scrambles. There's not really a weak point in his game that I can point to and say, yeah, that's where you exploit Leon Edwards as a fighter. I was excited to see him against Kamaru. I would have had Kamaru in that fight if I was making a prediction. However, I thought he deserved to be in there with Kamaru. That's how highly I thought of Leon Edwards after I saw him fight RDA. But Chimaev, all the naysayers and all the people who have been saying that, hey, he's not legit, he's not been fighting real fighters, he's not been fighting tomato cans, Chimaev has the ability to silence that once and for all by beating Leon Edwards. And then it's okay, no BS anymore. This guy is a legitimate top 5 title contender.
Yeah.
And it's in 2 weight classes, which is actually very interesting to me because we haven't seen somebody really stay in one weight class like Conor for a long period of time, grab the belt, and then immediately want to challenge. Yeah. But it seems like Khamzat's just willing to get in there and mix it up with anybody of either of those weight classes. On his way up, I'll climb here, I'll beat Leon, and then give me the number 2 guy at 85. Yeah. Robert Whittaker had a good win this past week, and let me fight that. It's really crazy what he's doing, but it's super entertaining and super impressive.
He's been calling everybody out. Everybody's on Khamzat's hit list. A lot of people aren't answering the phone when he calls, and for good reason. If you've got a little number next to your name, and that doesn't mean a lot to everybody. A lot of fighters don't even know the rankings, but if you are ranked, your ranking, and you don't want to get rid of that because if a loss to an unranked guy sends you way down the line, and that's what these guys have been working on. And I think that Khamzat doing this bouncing back is what's really helping him. I think it's helping him stay active, which is really good for a guy like him because one thing a lot of people say is every single fight you leave something,
Yeah.
a part of yourself in the octagon or in the ring. It's very true. But he hasn't really left anything because nobody's really touched him in his 3 fights. So he's just gained a lot of experience in these past 90 days or 100 and so days that he's been in the UFC. And I think the fact that the UFC believes in him enough to give him Leon Edwards means that they see something very special in Khamzat Chimaev. And I think that he bounces back, and the fact that he's so active so far this year and Leon's so inactive is going to play a major part into this fight.
Yeah, I have not seen the Vegas odds come out because we're shooting this video, and the news was literally just broken yesterday.
Yeah, I think I heard it yesterday.
At least we heard it for the first time yesterday. But I got to be honest, we can do a full breakdown as it gets closer to the fight, but I'm leaning towards picking Chimaev in this fight. Yeah. I think that he's going to win. I think that he's just a man on a mission, and he's not going to be denied. And I think the inactivity of Edwards is going to play a major factor.
Yeah.
I think that, if Chimaev was getting in there with somebody like a Colby Covington or a Kamaru Usman, I would say, okay, he's going to have a very difficult time because you're not just going to take Colby down and hold him down against his will. And if you do, well, my goodness, then we have something special here. But I just don't see that happening yet for Chimaev. However, Edwards, I do see him. He doesn't have that, NCAA wrestling pedigree. He's a purple belt, I believe, in jiu-jitsu. So he's not
That's a problem.
Super high level as far as jiu-jitsu goes. He's, like I said, he's an MMA fighter. He's one of these new generations of guys that are good everywhere. And that he is. That Leon absolutely is. But I see Chimaev being able to exploit some weak parts of his game that other champions have not been able to do. And, I know there was the Maya fight, and that kind of fell through, and then it was Wonder Boy, and that didn't work out. And so I was hoping that, and I think Chimaev was hoping more than anybody to be in there sooner rather than later. But I think this is the right career move for him.
Yeah.
I think this is a fight that he can win. I'm not saying he's going to go in there and mollywop Edwards.
Yeah.
Because Edwards is a great fighter. But if he gets in there and he gets the job done, even if he finishes Edwards, it's hard not to give him the winner of Burns and Usman.
Yeah.
And I know Colby Covington will have something to say about that after his last performance. But, if you get a logjam, put Chimaev Covington together.
Yeah.
Talk about what a card that would be.
Be an insane fight. And
170 is really fun right now.
Very fun. Very fun.
And it used to not
arguably
be.
the most competitive division. I would say right now it's number 2 behind 55.
Yeah.
And then close thirds 45. I think that Chimaev comes in hot. He comes right out of the gate looking to take your head off, looking to put you on the ground. And I think that when a fighter takes a year and a half off, which is about a year and a half since Leon fought by the time they step in the octagon, it takes a minute. Look at Lomachenko this past weekend. It took him 4, 5, 6 rounds to really get back into the live motion and the feel of a live fight. And I think that Leon Edwards is going to experience some of that. I hope he trains that, notices that, trains that, and comes ready for a hurricane Chimaev because it's coming. And it's not something that Chimaev has to do that's unauthentic to his style. It's something that he does, and he does it well, and he prefers to do it. So I think that this could be a dominant performance for one of these guys. I haven't decided on which way it's going to go, but my gut right now tells me that activity is going to play a big role, and Chimaev obviously has the advantage in that part.
Yeah, and if Edwards does the heavy lifting here and he is somehow able to get past Chimaev, I think maybe with the exception of Covington, because he just had an excellent performance against Woodley, you might have to give Edwards the title, even though Chimaev's unranked, to step in there and fight the guy that nobody wants to fight, even if you were a little bit strong-armed into the situation. I think Edwards could easily be either next in line or one behind the next in line, meaning behind Covington for that 170 belt.
And since Covington already had a shot at Usman, it could help that he gets one ahead of him. One thing I will say is this 100% solidifies Leon Edwards' position as one of the contenders for the BMF title.
Oh, yeah.
I don't. The three-piece Minnesota, that needs to get answered for. I think that taking the boogeyman of two divisions right now, the unheard of, unranked monster in Chimaev, taking him on when nobody else will, certifies you as a BMF. I think that the UFC, the fighters are going to notice that, and I think that he just stamped his approval into the BMF sweepstakes.
Yeah, and I love what Chael Sonnen said about the BMF, too, that it should have a lineage, and we should keep it going.
We should.
It started at 170 with George Masvidal. He was the original BMF holder.
Right.
And if another division wants to take that BMF title, they have to have somebody come down or come up to 170 and then take it back to the division. Who better than Khamzat Chimaev? Because I think Khamzat Chimaev is in running for the BMF title anyways,
100%.
because he truly embraces what that abbreviation stands for.
Yeah.
And so if you have Khamzat come in, and Masvidal is crazy enough to take that fight, and he takes it off of Masvidal, maybe we see that BMF lineage go up to 185.
Right.
And there's some cool, exciting people that could take it there. Maybe it works its way all the way up to heavyweight.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Or let's just say it works down, because I think it's very cool that the BMF title was originally held between Masvidal, who has found his home at 170, and Nate Diaz, who is a 170er right now, but for the most of his career has been 155. So it could have gone down. Imagine, let's just say, Nate Diaz would have won that fight and gone back down to 155, and then Max Holloway bounces up from 145. You could see it go all the way down into the 35s. It's one of those things that I definitely think should just bounce wherever it bounces.
Agree.
I think it will most likely hang around the 170, 185 range for a little while. And then once it gets up to heavyweight, it's probably going to be hard to get it back down. But I love the parity of it. I think that it's something that's important for the sport. I think it's a great selling point. And like you said, Chimaev definitely earned his spot. And after Leon Edwards accepted this fight, he's definitely earned his spot as well.
Yeah, and the three-piece Minnesota absolutely has to be answered for.
Has to be answered for.
And it seems like the UFC is trying to hand Edwards a three-piece Minnesota in the form of Chimaev here.
And look, Leon Edwards is probably going to come into this fight with a serious chip on his shoulder. The UFC just kind of did him dirty a little bit. They gave him a fight, but they did him dirty, and I'm sure he views it like that. I think it's just business. He's been landlocked up in the UK, not really able to get to America for fights, and then not really being active, and then kind of picking and choosing. They don't really like that. So I think he's going to come in hot and come in angry, and I think this makes for a fantastic fight right before Christmas. A little early Christmas gift for us.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. Guys, are you as excited as we are about Chimaev versus Edwards? Is this too much too soon for the young Chechnyan fighter, or is he going to shock the world and defeat the number 3 ranked fighter in the division and solidify himself as a true title contender? Let us know in the comments. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and check us out where you listen to podcasts. Have a great day.
Peace.